What's up, everybody? This is Edward back with another video. Today we're going to talk politics real quick. It's something that I'm going to start aiming for on my channel. I'm definitely going to start trying to do more um, trending news and really add kind of like what my take is. You know, the election is really starting to ramp up, and I want to give you my perspectives. Yeah, what's up, Charles? Give my perspectives on some things and add it. There's levels to this shit. But at the end of the day, I'm just gonna tell you how it's gonna end in the beginning. You know, bar some unforeseen situation, some freak accident situation, or some crazy revelation. I mean, Trump is gonna win. Me personally, I'm not gonna say I didn't think, but when I pondered on it, I didn't see why it was for what Trump really wanted to do, in my opinion. Why he would have wanted to do 8 years, other than to not be seen as like a failure president. He should have just, in my opinion, just dropped the damn mic and just said, I'm not gonna run again," and then just left it at the Republican Party. But it really changes things that he is going to run, and he will probably do another 4 years. The Democrats, if they're smart, are going to stop playing the outrage card once the election happens, because it's not going to work. Trump is an old white man with money. You're just not going to get that kind of mileage like they could get on Obama, and Trump just doesn't have to walk that same shit. Now, do I like Trump? Not really. Did I vote for Trump? No, I didn't. Am I gonna vote for Trump this time? Probably not. Not that I'm gonna vote for the Democrat either. I pay more attention to local politics and statewide politics, but it really doesn't matter. Too many people focus presidential politics through a lens of who they like, and that's extremely basic, and that's extremely dumb, especially if you've been through multiple elections. But let's backtrack a little bit, and let's examine why the Democratic Party is going to lose, and give you my thoughts as to why we are where we are, and why things are going where they're going. Now, you talk to somebody like BGS, he talks very high level, as far as like BGS talks about kind of like things from a tectonic plate perspective. Like, America has an agenda, and the government has certain things that has to get done. And then really, depending on who's the president, it just goes about how those things go about getting done. But the end result is the same, because it predates what anybody really could be running for election really wants to do. It just, the argument is about how that shit gets administered, more so what's actually going to happen. That's what BGS would say. I'm not going to talk about it from that high of a level. I'm going to bring it more down to what my level is. So let's get started. So first of all, let's talk about how we got to where we are. Contrary to popular belief, black people are not the first segment of the population. Or when I say segment of the population, black people are not the first group that the Democratic Party has fucked over. They actually create this the coalition that the Democrats typically use to get elected. It was actually white people. They fucked over the blue collar folks, the union guys. And I'm not saying I give a shit about that to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, when you're looking for what you need to get elected, um, blue collar white folks are a far larger majority, or a sizable block, than black folks. And from a black male perspective, black men are like a block within a block within a block that's not even united at all, because black people don't vote on a black male agenda. Black men don't. Black men don't even vote on a traditional male agenda. Black men overall vote on a quote unquote, they don't vote on a black agenda. They just vote for who they're fucking told to vote. I'm talking about as an overall group. We understand individuals and all of that. I'm talking about group patterns. But back in the 2000s, I'm talking about even before Obama got elected, you had people like Lou Dobbs and folks like that who would talk about how the middle class is being hollowed out, hollowed out, hollowed out. This is pre 2008. This is pre Obama. This is pre 2006. This is really pre 2005. Really, this is more between like 404 and Obama getting elected, and even before then. But really, the Iraq war, or the media portraying that, just took up so much oxygen in the media scape as far as politics, that nothing else really got talked about. And all throughout that time, you know, the Democrats were looking for, okay, because you got to, people forget, Citizens United was passed in 2005. People forget that shit. And Citizens United was incredibly important because it really eliminated all the laws that really were controlling how people move their money. And it allowed for, if you can generate the money, you can use the money. Like, seriously. Like, and to give you an idea, like what Michael Bloomberg is doing, as far as using his own money, would be, it's giving him an advantage, but the advantage would almost be like, I would say, what about right now, it gives him almost like a 10 to 1 advantage as far as spending. It would give him almost like 100 to 1, because back before Citizens United, there was laws that limited people's ability to spend money, and they'll just put out the money. Those laws that limited that, and Bloomberg will have an extra advantage because he is using his own money, which there's no real laws against using your own money. There never has been. But Citizens United really changed the game, and it took a couple of election cycles to catch that. Like 04 was, well, no, 04 happened, and then 08 was the first one, 12 was the second one, 16 was the third one, and now we're moving into the fourth presidential cycle after Citizens United. And I didn't want to make this video about Citizens United. Really, I would love for Sigma, because he does good work on Supreme Court cases, to really do an expose on it, because what a lot of people don't realize is, when you look at the change between now and then, and how the laws have changed, how stuff is structured, how you see just how, like, I'll give you an example. The way the tech companies, because the tech companies were big, but they weren't like in the same iterations that they are now. There was just like Microsoft, Yahoo, and a handful of companies. There's a lot more companies now, and the Democratic Party pulls a lot of money from tech companies. They pull a lot of money from tech companies, and that has replaced the union money that they otherwise used to raise. And this is why the priority has never been on, really has changed as far as trying to get those conservative white voters, except to get elected. They don't really put any laws behind helping them. This is what's kind of accelerated things like feminism, because a lot of those white men that have traditional conservative backgrounds, what they're generally going to be with white women that they kind of have the same values. You're not going to see no blue collar white dudes with no liberal white females. That's just not going to work that way. Not that are married. And let's be clear here: single motherhood in white folks is at 50%. I just wanted to put that out there, because Glenn and Cameron did a video on that, talking about marketing, and how when you really look at a lot of white folks, it's really not that much different than black folks, as far as what's really going on. But anyway, that's an aside. The point here is a lot of black people, they think that like at the end of the day, people need your votes, and the reality is they don't even necessarily need your money. And what you see, if you go back and look at this, and how you see the switch between the Democratic Party drawing power from Silicon Valley and Hollywood, versus drawing power from traditional blocks, such as like the union blocks, which is like white folks, middle class. Now you're starting to understand how the Democratic Party can kind of prioritize what they prioritize, because some people have realized that, but votes don't move as fast as money does. When folks are not getting what they want out of the political system or out of a party, the money will dry up very quickly. And generally, if they don't have a replacement for it, they're gonna be wary to do anything that's gonna fuck that up. When it comes to votes, you can spend votes, because you're dealing with masses of people, and if you control media apparatuses, Folks are not really going to catch shit unless it's certain hot button topics that people really jump on: abortion, guns, that sort, racism, that sort of thing. But I would have you all really pay attention to where the Democratic Party pulls power from. So anyway, that's one thing to pay attention to. So they're really one of the main blocks that they've hollowed out. Now, if you move on to black people, really the Democrats have had a policy of trying to aggregate all groups into this one neutral, like non-white group. So the way the Democrats try to look at it is there's white and there's non-white. And then within the non-white groups, okay, which groups do they got to buy off? They know Hispanics because Hispanics is an extremely growing population, and black people are neutralized population as far as its percentage of real estate population-wise it's going to take up. Not to mention that we're not even counting, non-ADOS type of blacks. They don't necessarily, some of them vote on the same wavelength, but others don't. And even the ones that vote on, and like in the Democratic Party, don't see themselves ethnically as the same. So they're more likely to not buy into, quote unquote, a black agenda. Not saying they're all like that, but you have to account for that. And then you got to account for black women that don't really buy into a black agenda that doesn't directly benefit them. And this is why they vote for the Democratic Party in the highest numbers that they do. You cannot argue with the fact that black women vote for the Democratic Party at damn near a 95% rate. You can't say they're not voting on a black agenda. They're voting on whatever they're buying, whatever the Democrats are selling. So point being, they've always had a policy for a long time of basically containment. How do we get the votes out of them we want to get out of them without giving them anything? Basically a con game. And black people, for the most part, going on Black History Month and going on shit like, well, Democrats are the non-racist. This idea that they are that. And just been on autopilot with that, just brainwashing, because that's what it is at this point, brainwashing. Because it's so obvious that that's not true. That's worked. And unfortunately, again, you look at things like social media that's really come alive in a different way in the 2010s, mainly from 2015 onward, as people really started to look at like Obama and look and take inventory of like things that Obama did and didn't do, and groups that benefit and didn't benefit. And what you find is feminism benefited very much from Obama. I'm gonna go back to into that in a second. The Obama years, feminism benefited from Obama. LGBT probably benefited the most from Obama presidency as far as the culture, and black people really didn't. Black women got some things, and they're starting to notice that now that Trump's starting to reverse them. But for the most part, black people lost a lot of wealth in the 2010s, and they never recovered it. What they lost in 2008, they never recovered. Black people had started to get a lot of real estate. We're talking about before the acceleration of the Bush policies that had banks really try to get people in homes and black people in homes and shit and fucked up loans. Black people had really been at a improving spot, and then all that shit got liquidated in between 2006 2009, and that was never recovered ever. This is why in the 2010s motherfuckers working 2 or 3 jobs, inflation, all this shit started to happen, and now it's normalized. Like, you having more than one job is normalized. Motherfuckers going to school and being with all this fucking debt and that shit, and it's it's being harder and harder to get a job. All that shit is normal now. Well, that shit was not necessarily normal pre-2010. It's not as normal. Not as normal. But you still have people going on autopilot on the same shit that they were doing before. And it's only now that the motherfuckers are starting to push back against, going to college and getting debt. And then going to college, getting a whole bunch of debt without no way of getting a job, it might as well be like going to high school, not graduating from high school at this point, because it really fucks up your ability to do a lot of shit. If you're a woman, it can fuck with your ability to get married, because dudes are paying attention to that shit now, because that debt becomes their debt. If you're a dude, and it's easier for a woman to get employed than you are, unless you're going into certain fields. people are starting to now pay attention to that because they have to. They can't afford to be like laissez die. Like, this is one thing BGS was talking about with Zillennials versus Millennials, and I brought this up too, is that Zillennials can see the buzz saws. So now if they walk into them, they're knowingly walking into them. If you go to college as a Zillennial and you don't have no ability to get that shit paid, you're walking into a fucking buzzsaw. And you're kind of knowingly doing so. And a lot of Zillennials are not doing that because it just doesn't make sense. And they're not figuring it out when they get to their 30s because they're not going to have that kind of time like millennials did. So anyway, I'm gonna get to the individual politicians in a second. I just wanted to set a little bit of set the table a little bit. Now, going back into the Obama years, one thing. Now I'm about to get into specifically the Democratic Party, and I'm doing that because they're the ones that are running. This has nothing to do with Obama. This is just talk about the years. The thing about it is you got to remember, the Democratic Party for the most part has been governed by faction. Not even governed by factions. It's been governed by personalities. So you've got Harry Reid, who's been in the game for a very, very long time. And when Tom Daschle was kind of, I believe it's Tom Daschle. Dude, I forget. I believe it's Tom Daschle, though. Dude, they really kind of brought Obama to the federal scene. And he saw Obama and what Obama could become at a very early rate, and lifted Obama kind of out of that. Obama had to do everything on his own, but as well. But he was kind of the dude that was kind of like really, once he won certain things, like making sure he got his due for what he was winning. Because he was really trying to put somebody in the liberal box. They were kind of under the liberal faction because they needed to counter like Hillary Clinton, because Hillary and Bill were really the main ones running the yard for the longest time with their triangulation, their kind of progressive / conservative style of politics, which is pretty much, which is benefited black people, some black people, but for the most part, it's fucked over a lot of black people. If you're a black person and you're in the kind of the lower tier category, it has fucked you up. If you're a black person and you are in the make money category, you probably benefited. So a lot of black people are split on Clintons. But when you look at things like and if you're a black man, you just can't argue with a lot of the shit that they did. But anyway, the point is, the reason why I bring that up is because you didn't really have people being truly developed in the Democratic Party. And it's showing. Like, and when I say develop, what do I mean? I mean people that when you see them, they represent a faction of the Democratic Party, because most of the factions have been hollowed out. The Democratic Party really thinks they're going to get elected on women, Hispanics, and gays. The problem is, and when you look at all of those blocks and what they have in common, is generally the LGBT population is a very small population, but they control factions of money, meaning the LGBT population is a high controller of Hollywood, which can pull up money. Obviously, LGBTs with what they make and stuff like that, and because how they're highly organized as far as, donations and shit, and they all, and a lot of them individually make money. Even though they're a small number, they can pull up a lot of money. On top of the tech shit. But the problem is, these are populations that do nothing voting wise. They can't get anything done. The LGBT population couldn't get anything passed. They had to use the courts to kind of bum rush their way through shit because they were losing votes. It's not like marijuana, where the public has kind of accepted it enough to where you're seeing that getting pushed through elections and it's winning. And people forget that shit did not happen with gay marriage and shit like that. That shit was failing everywhere. So they had to go to the courts to mainly hustle that and buy their way through that. My point is, what traditionally you have people that can raise money, and then you have people that can actually represent certain bodies of populations. So you have if you look at who ran in 2004 and who ran in 2008, you kind of saw that, kind of. But but mainly in '04 because everybody thought Hillary was going to be the main one to try to go for it in '08. And then Obama kind of came out of nowhere and froze that out. And then at that point, really, Hillary was too old at that point. And people had kind of got cemented on who Hillary was. And I don't think it honestly benefited Hillary being in Obama's White House because too many people could pay attention to her and build up negativity towards her as they saw how she was doing things. Because it was always seen as Hillary was able to do what she wanted to do. And Obama kind of went along with it to a point. So she took L's. So when he took L's, she took L's. And it almost got to the point where people would jump on her before they would jump on Obama because Obama had enough of a likable factor and he didn't really give a lot of people a reason to say anything. My point is the Democratic Party's bench got froze for like 8 years. It got froze really since 2000 and like it really got froze for 10 years. And the Democrats have never developed people that actually have enough heft that they could carry weight. Obama was not really developed by the Democratic Party. He came out of nowhere. Hillary was an offset of Bill, really, because of that, you know. So at the end of the day, what you see with the Democrats right now, you know, you got to remember Elizabeth Warren has not been in politics for that long. She was a professor not that long ago. And so at the end of the day, she's very much tied to her region, which is Massachusetts, which their brand of white liberalism slash anti-black or anti-black people don't deserve as much of a priority they get bullshit that comes out of Massachusetts typically because they're not Kennedys and Kennedys are not all of that either, to be completely real, but Warren is definitely not that. um you know, Elizabeth Warren is pretty much an academic elitist that masquerades as a people's a person for the people in a liberal sense. And there's certain things I can agree with kind of like finance and shit like that, financial stability. But overall, she doesn't have the charisma. She's benefiting from being the last serious woman standing. But when you look at all the women it ran, none of them were ever gonna win. The best that any of them could have did was maybe do some vice presidential shit. But even then, the only there's no reason to make Elizabeth Warren a vice president outside of her being a woman, and then women feeling a certain type of way. Um, that's it. And then you got to ask the folks that are going to vote against Trump are going to vote against Trump anyway. You're not going to peel off anybody that voted for Trump that's a female because of Elizabeth Warren. That's just not going to happen. So now I'm about to go into like all the Democrats and what their issues is. Anyway, let me see what y'all saying first. So what's up, Rebel So? What's up, Archer, Edward Hyde, Deborah. Leonelli says they're doing Russia again. How freaking stupid is that? I'll talk about that in a sec. Well, as far as them doing Russia, I mean that's what that tells me is that just tells me they don't. What that tells me is they don't have good spinners. They don't have people that are like your Karl Roves, your David Axelrods. They don't have people that really know how to create marketing strategy. And to be fair, the Democrats have never been good at messaging and brand ever. The Republicans have always beaten them with that. President Obama pretty much railroaded conservatives with the internet, but they've caught the conservatives control the internet a lot better than what liberals do now. The only thing about liberals is you got a lot of liberals trolling on the internet. But as far as like internet marketing for a political sense, oh yeah, libertarians and Democrats, Republicans control that. So they've caught up. And the Democrat, again, Obama was like his own entity that the Democratic Party piggybacked on. But they never really learned the lessons they needed to learn from Obama and learn the mistakes that he did make as far as in his presidency with regards to their populations. So really what you're seeing is a Democratic Party absence of really Hillary and a lot of her satellites and Obama and a lot of their satellites. Because Obama got a lot of outsiders. And I'll get to that in a second. So you got that. free will. Bernie, the only one I kind of believe in, but like you said, local government is way more important. As far as Bernie, you know, Bernie's problem. I'm gonna say this about Bernie. Bernie, number one, all these motherfuckers are too old. Bernie as well. I don't see Bernie doing 8 years, even if he got elected. Just because he could have potentially beat Trump in 2016 does not necessarily mean he's going to do it in 20. Also, as far as believing, Bernie Sanders' problem is I just can't. I'm not gonna fuck with nobody that's gonna, okay, you're Jewish and they get money all the time. And I get that. But then when it comes to black people and reparations, and here's the thing. When it comes to things like reparations, people will say, well, you're allowing reparations to get in the way. Okay. What what I expect the Democrats to do is to say, okay, I understand that you want reparations, your old reparations, but at the end of the day, that shit like that has to be politically feasible. Now, the gay shit wasn't feasible at first, but they made that shit feasible. But whatever. I expect them to come back to me as saying with a saying, okay, we are going to have to table that, but this and this and this is what we can do for you now. And I'm talking about do for you, not do for everybody, and it trickles to you. It do for you. None of them ever did that. None of them ever said, okay, we need to, they're going to ask us for reparations. They're not going to stop. We need to have a plan that can counter that, so at least we can get enough black people to where they can get on board with this other plan and then table reparations for at least for the time being for us to get elected. They never even did that. There are plenty of things that they could have did, even things that I might say is on some bullshit, but that they could have got some black people on. There's plenty of things they could have did on that. Plenty of things. And I might do a whole video on that, but they didn't do that. They did what Kamala Harris and them did is they said no. They actually said, how dare you ask for anything? And when you understand the history of benign neglect that the Democratic Party is actively doing till this day, it's very obvious that they're telling you, because they don't tell that to nobody else but us. And that's facts. When you look at agents and anybody else, they do not do that. They get broken off. And I'm tired of motherfuckers actually trying to act like that doesn't happen or that's a figment of somebody's imagination. But anyway, the point is, Bernie, again, is not about all the candidates come back to the same ideology. It's not about like when the Republicans were running, Trump was like completely different than like Jeb Bush. Even though they came back to a certain ideology, there was very different things. Like you could tell who you voted for would give you different administrations. That's not true for the Democrats. The Democrats are gonna pull from all the same motherfuckers, and all the same motherfuckers are trying to get in. Because so really it's more of take the party as a whole and leave it. Now I'm gonna give individual reasons as to why these people fuck up. But at the end of the day, it comes back to that. That's why they're all saying the same thing when it comes to black people. If you notice, they all said most of the same shit when it came to black people. It was just pick a different brand. So just because Bernie Mac has Killer Mike as a mascot, and I'm gonna keep it all real, Killer Mike is fucking stupid. If I was talking to Killer Mike in his ear, I would say, if you can't get that motherfucker on nothing, you need to get him on these black banks, and you need to get him on black group economics, and saying he's gonna do things that's gonna really get black people on a group economic thing. But Killer Mike won't say that. Killer Mike needs to stick with finance and group economics and shit like that, and then shut the fuck up on everything else. Because if you notice Killer Mike don't go out his way to talk to Dr. Clark. He don't do that because he knows what's up. He knows that he ain't really running the yard. All he's doing is being a fucking yes man. And really, like that's not a situation where Killer Mike represents like a black voice, and then Bernie's is looking at him to tell him what black people think. No, Killer Mike is there because that's some shit that's on his heart for some fucking reason, and then Bernie is telling him what to do. Not no Killer Mike is advising him, if you want the black vote, here's like what I'm saying, this is what you gonna have to do. If you want to secure the black vote, which is wide open, if you really don't want to talk about reparations right now, this is what you're gonna have to give these people. And then talking about what happened in 2008, talk about how people got fucked up. He won't do that. Talk about how the banks fuck black people over. Some shit is within how Bernie likes to talk anyway. He won't say that because he doesn't want to tie himself down to anything. Because even though Bernie Sanders is not in the Democratic Party officially, he still operates on that benign neglect shit. And that stuff, that's a word that any black person, every black person needs to know. Benign neglect. They need to know what it means, the history behind it. And they need to know about that just as much as they need to know about the Southern strategy. More so, because black people are more likely to vote Democrat than Republican. But no, that's the issue with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, at the end of the day, he's not going to do shit for you. Here's the thing. I'm not going to talk about this from a black perspective. When you look at Bernie Sanders, what Bernie Sanders is going to do, number one, he's a domestic guy. He's not an international guy. And America is in a position where, quite frankly, we kind of need an international guy as well as domestic. But what Bernie Sanders is going to do is he's going to curtail the banks. He's gonna try to he's gonna do a lot of shit that's not gonna pass. That's what Bernie's gonna do. He's gonna do shit that he's gonna do a lot of shit that at the end of the day, if the Democrats fucking just filibustered. That's it. Because Republicans have no problem holding time. And quite frankly, you don't even know if Bernie gets the nomination. They're going to just run socialist. And the Democrats better be very smart about it because people, I think they completely underestimate the hostility towards Trump and they underestimate the hostility towards them. They really do. Because a lot of people might not vote. And if they don't vote, that's going to benefit the Republicans. The less people vote, the more the Republicans benefit. But that's my issue with Bernie Sanders. Next, we have, let's see what else. Have you ever, Q James said, do you ever notice that people that talk about how much money they have, 99% out of 100 times do not have very much and vice versa? I don't know what that's reference to. Okay, so y'all being Candace Owens, we know she won't be a first president. Stop being stupid. Then half the people I know got 2 jobs and a side gig with that shit real hair. Yeah, Sheen. And they talk about that shit like that's normal. They got 2 jobs and they think that shit's normal. And I'm like, why don't you get one job that has overtime and work the overtime? Or that's what they think it is. You're right about Hillary nowadays. It seems like you're better off being a bit of a political outsider. Yeah, Hillary, I think that was a mistake that Hillary made being with Obama. I think looking back, she should have just stayed. Hillary should have got away. I don't know. But because getting away from politics, Hillary should have did some international. She was already doing that with Secretary of State. I don't know. Hillary, I don't want to say she just completely removed herself from politics. But I mean, she was already a senator. She should have been a senator for a couple of more years and kind of bowed out for maybe 3 or 4 years and kind of allowed her public opinion to come up. I think people just got tired of her meddling. And when I say meddling, I mean, it was the perception was she was behind a lot of shit. His ratings has kind of come up over time because he's outside of the spotlight. Yeah, what's up, Roger? Yeah, Obama was the first to go toe to toe, but really Obama kind of got he kind of got ahead of the curve, and the machine is caught up to that now. The Republic. This is why you got people like the Breitbart's dead, but people like Breitbart, Steve Bannon, they've caught up, and a lot of them learned from Obama. They caught up. They completely caught up now. So it's not so talk radio is a vector, the internet's another vector. That's why you don't see conservatism get fucked with as much on shit like Facebook and shit like that as much anymore. Meet the Mets says basically that Democrats don't have a person you can get behind, maybe Bernie. I don't understand why everybody what the fucking I voted for Bernie in the primaries in 2016. But I'm gonna tell you, I don't know when I actually asked someone, I actually sit somebody down and I asked them to explain to me what makes Bernie so fucking special. What separates Bernie from any of these other motherfuckers running? Nobody can really tell me. Nobody really can tell me. The only thing that y'all can say is he goes further as far as his talking points than anybody else. But other than that, nobody can really tell me shit. I've known of Bernie Sanders for a long time. And I mean, you got to remember, Bernie Sanders represents a state that's fucking Vermont. It's nothing but white people. It's small. He has the luxury of saying some of the shit that he says. He has that. He has that as a luxury. But remember what state he comes from. In theory, that he's not. And plus, you got to remember, you got to watch these motherfuckers that have never been executives either, because they've never had to actually do shit. They can just vote on shit, but they've never had to really be accountable to shit other than voting. You got to watch that. And that's another thing, too, that says a lot. The Democratic Party has too many legislators and not enough executives running. Compare that to like when Trump and them ran in 2016 on the Republican side. So you got motherfuckers, it's like Hollywood. You got folks that are in their fucking bubbles, but they've never had to actually, I know it sounds like a Republican thing, but they've never had to balance a fucking budget. They've never had to actually prioritize what is valued and not valued against another legislator. Warren, it went from a professor to a senator. So she ain't never had to fucking do that. Um, um, there are people with they got good ideas, but they don't actually know how to administer any of those ideas. They, if you notice, that's the problem with the Democrats above all else, and that's the same thing with Bernie Sanders. They all have that issue. Same thing with Amy Klobuchar. She's only been in the Senate maybe one cycle now, and Amy Klobuchar again. Like when you look at these are white zones, all three of them. Minnesota is a white state for the most part. Massachusetts is a smaller state. It's got a black population, but you know how white people are in mass. Vermont is one of the whitest states in the union. Who else fucking running? That Pete motherfucker, Indiana is one of the whitest states in the union. Um, you know, Kamala Harris was a chosen girl, and you see how goofy she was. Cory Booker, Cory Booker really Cory Booker's problem was he's whatever. I'll get on him in a second. But the point is, all these people that you see running, they all they're exposed. It's very obvious they're exposed. Tulsi, I like Tulsi Gabbard more than Amy Klobuchar. Knew enough where she could spin everything she says. So and Tulsi Gabbard, the problem is Tulsi Gabbard, the Democrats haven't really gotten into Tulsi Gabbard and read her ass completely in to the you don't tell black people you're gonna do something. You don't do that. You have to get our permission to say certain shit like that because you're going against what the party platform is. And because she's trying to make a name for herself, that's why when black people in that Detroit debate were like thunders to debate when she hit fell because the donors and the party folks, the party bosses did not like that because that really exposed really Kamala Harris, and you saw Kamala Harris really drop out not that much longer after that because it was over for her. They pretty much that really was the kill shot, and you could tell Tulsi Gabbard didn't even know, she really didn't understand what she did at all. If you ask her like why black people did that, she would have no fucking clue because she was kind of looking at something from an outside looking in, but she happened to say the right thing and hit the right thing. Um, so that's that. Um, but Tulsi Gabbard is definitely one of the folks that if you were smart, you would want to develop because clearly that's the thing that these people are not understanding. Tulsi Gabbard is actually one of the white chicks you want to try to develop. So it's saying some positive shit. And keep in mind, we're just talking about saying shit. We're not even talking about voting for shit. But anyway, um, but Amy Klobuchar, I mean, I've never had an issue with her, but and you could tell Amy is one of these chicks that you could tell she ain't got no black folks around her. She ain't, and when I say black folks, she ain't got no minorities around her. She's one of these chicks that she's nice, but she's a white chick and she's got nothing but white people around her, and it obviously shows. Well, she's one of these tough on crime chicks too, where she's a Democrat and she doesn't understand it. Talking about you tough, you can say you're tough on crime today, but tomorrow they're gonna ask you questions about that because tough on crime means tough on blacks. And the Democratic Party as a whole, you got to remember, you always have to look at this from the party as a whole, because all they are outgrowths of the party. They're not saying nothing that's outside the norm for what the party believes at this moment. Bernie all like liberals. Tulsi Gabbard kind of operated outside of that, but for the most part, these are liberals. Kamala and them were intersectionalists. You know, Booker was kind of suspect. They're all liberals. These are not like all Democrats. They're all liberals. Michael Bloomberg is the only one is a business guy. So they're not only they're economically extremely liberal as well. And you see how much Roger Report said no woman has really made a big enough splash, in my opinion, to become president. They need to do something memorable outside of sleeping with the former president that happens to be her. But I mean, let's keep this all the way real. The biggest mistake looking back that women made, if you're somebody on a woman's movement, you diluted each other. They completely diluted each other. You know, you had Kamala, Amy, Warren, um, Tulsi Gabbard. You had a Kirsten Gillibrand. No, they should have all never tried to put their hat in there. It should have been maybe two of them. That's it. And Warren said, okay, it's Warren, and then who else? Kamala? No. I like because they that shit was never. But early, this is the hustle, and this is what donors have to always pay attention to. But they got so much money they don't care. The hustle is people run for president to kind of build a better name for themselves in the party. So it's kind of a way to get famous within the public, within the party. So how can you get famous outside of your state or outside of your district as a way to give you political power? Because maybe people identify with you. Elizabeth Warren is a perfect example of this. That's a way to do it. So now, even if Elizabeth Warren doesn't get the nomination, she can go back and her voice will be shat because she can move votes and because she can probably raise money, which operates outside of her district, because Elizabeth Warren does not have to worry about getting elected. She has an advantage over a lot of senators in that. The only person that can knock her off is a Kennedy. And to be honest with you, they'll make somebody else give up their seat before she'll have to give hers up because there's 2 Senate seats. So being electable, it doesn't matter because she's pretty much secured that in her state. Now all she has to do is pretty much learn how to raise money. And running for president is a good way of doing that. Yeah, Xanatos. Let me do this. I'm gonna end. What how much time? What time is it? Do I really? No, I'll do this tomorrow. I'm not about to do this today, and then because I started a hangout, and then that bitch would be like 2 hours. I ain't trying to do all that. As far as Tulsi, like I said, Tulsi Gabbard is like an archetype of what the Democrats want to develop over time, but they're not going to do that. Another woman is a woman. Her name's Kirsten Sinema. She's a senator in Arizona. Um, I mean, I can point targets, but they're not doing that because again, you know, they had before Obama, it was the Hillary, it was the Clinton, then Hillary Clinton, then fucking Obama, and the Democrats have never developed. You're seeing a very underdeveloped party. So now
What you mean by, I mean, I can target, but then I think they're not doing it because, again, they had before Obama.
what the fuck are they talking? Anyway, just Siri. Anyway, what they're doing is they're like the New York fucking Knicks. So when you look at all these people and you look at all these candidates, Andrew Yang was running for he wasn't running seriously. He was running to put policy for to bring exposure to certain policies. So I never took him seriously. This Pete dude, they gotta you gotta think about it. They gotta have one like legitimate white dude because technically Bernie is Jewish, Bloomberg is Jewish. So they gotta have one traditional white dude in there, and he's like the John Edwards in the group. But at the end of the day, what it ultimately comes down to is what you're voting for is it doesn't matter which candidate you're voting for. You're voting for the same shit. You're voting for LGBT rights. You're voting for basically illegal immigration. That's what you're voting for. You're voting for feminism. You're voting for that's really what you're voting for because most Democrats today are not really international. And people would say, okay, well, is Trump international? No. But the thing about it is, at the end of the day, it is what you're dealing with. So you have to say, am I voting for the, I know what the unknown is, but the unknown versus the known. And I would ask anybody, if you vote for the Democratic Party, what are some positive things you could hope to get out of the Democratic Party? Now, I'm talking about from an American standpoint. I'm not even talking about, now I can give you some examples, but I'm not even talking about from a black man standpoint. You ain't even heard me mention that. Because from a black man standpoint, the Democratic Party has no respect for you. The Republican Party is not going to respect you either, but at least you be voting on what you value more. It's really just like that. The thing about Michael, the thing that I saw with the Bloomberg debate, from what I observed, because part of it could be that he needs to understand, he needed to, it was the first time, and they came at him hard. I don't think he underestimated that. But at the end of the day, too, Bloomberg's too, these motherfuckers are too old. And the thing about Bloomberg is Bloomberg has some shit that he's exposed to too. Bloomberg has got stuff that they could come at him and they're gonna drip it out because they're not gonna want to just completely knock him out because they don't want him to respond. But none of these folks is serious. Like and what kills me, and now I'm about to switch gears a little bit. What kills me about folks, especially this is true for everybody, because white folks are really bad about this, but motherfuckers, they talk about this shit like it's fucking talk about college basketball, college football, where they get behind these people and they put so much emotional investment in some of these people. And I'm like, you like once you watch this shit over time, especially you very quickly begin to learn a lot of these people are full of shit. They really are. Like folks, a lot of black they did a poll and they said like 60% of black people don't even know really enough about Bloomberg to form an opinion of them. Now I don't expect black people or black people in particular to know that. But you know, when you understand that and you understand how much ads he's putting out, he gets to tell his narrative when in actuality, when you understand him, Pataki, in the governing seat, you look at all that combination and what that did with black. There's a reason why a lot of black people are leaving New York and going to the South and shit like that. And you know, shit stopped. Shit that he said about defending stop and frisk. Yeah, he apologized. When you understand all this shit, and you're like, all right, you can get some stuff done, but really, you just gonna be like, let's lock up the blacks because you're 70. At the end of the day, you're 73 years old. That's 70. That's your default anyway. It's an age thing. That's another reason why I like some of these motherfuckers as old as they are, because a lot of their attitudes, you gotta remember, I mean, motherfucker was like 20 years old in the fucking 60s. Like, seriously. Klobuchar is just too fucking green. I don't even see Klobuchar. I don't see Klobuchar being vice president. She's not a ticket person. She's just there because she's a woman. Let's keep that real. She's there because she's a woman, period. There is nothing that she's done that really should have her thinking she could honestly run for president. She's there because she's a woman, a white woman. That's all that is. Elizabeth Warren has a little bit more on her belt, but she's just a higher version of the same shit. She's there because she's a woman. If you ask Elizabeth Warren what type of shit bill she done sponsored has actually gotten passed, she can't tell you. And Klobuchar damn sure can't tell you because she ain't been in the Senate that long. She's been in the Senate, I think, one cycle. That's it. And I'm gonna keep it real with you. If she really, really, really wanted to get a lot of men on board with her, she wouldn't have let that other senator step down like he did, and she would have got in front of that and backed him up because females were gonna deal with her regardless because she's a woman. But she didn't do that. She sold that dude out so he could so that seat could be replaced by another woman. Motherfuckers remember that shit. And now they want to, at the later on, say maybe they were too harsh with him. No. So, which I don't care about him one way or the other, but that's the type of shit politically that if she knew she wanted to do this, she might wanted to do. Al Franken is his name. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's 78. These motherfuckers are old as shit. So think about it. 80 years old. It's 2020. So that means in 1960 he was like fucking like they're old as fuck, man. Warren is like 70. Yeah, so when you look at the Democratic Party, man, that's I mean, it's not that complicated. That's what they stand for. And people talk about, well, what about the economy? What the fuck about it? What has the Democrats really told you about the economy other than raising taxes on the rich? Which I'm not saying they don't need to pay more taxes because they've been getting over for a minute, raising taxes on the rich, and then they're not using that to balance anything. They're just using that to spend money on other shit. They're not telling you shit. Seriously, the Democrats don't have an economic plan. They don't really have a plan other than beat up the banks and raise the taxes on the rich. They haven't really outgrown a serious plan, some serious ideas. Andrew Yang has said that with universal income, but they not really talking about that because they don't want to be seen as socialists. So at the end of the day, yeah, what's up, Anthony Taylor? All right, so I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna switch. You always ask me why do I talk about the gynocracy all the time? Because at the end of the day, the politics that matter is the politics between black folks. Because at the end of the day, those are the politics that actually would create a united bloc. You know, black people getting on the same page. Real fucking talk. Ugh. All right, yeah, let's just be good. And real fucking talk. When you talk about people will say, "Oh, well, you're complaining." No, I'm not complaining. When I talk about the gynocracy, I'm trying to give you a real looking structure, of what the black community currently is, how the power currently moves, and is the political what is the political structure within the black community you need to do to even get a united community. So when we talk about certain things that women do and women are about, a lot of people think, okay, that's about who they picking as far as who they fucking, but it goes beyond that. It goes way beyond that because this stuff spills over into how they approach politics. Like for instance, when black men think of black people, they're actually thinking of black people. When black women think of black people, they're thinking of black women and black children, and for the most part, they're thinking of black women and black girls. They're not thinking about black men. They may speak to it, but they're not really doing shit that does anything. It's kind of like Democrats. Democrats will speak to racisms, and now they're not even speaking to racism anymore. They used to speak to racism, but now they're not speaking to racism. Now but when they did, Democrats didn't do shit about racism. Think about it. Obama spent 8 years trying to speak to racism, and at the end of the day, what the fuck did Obama really do about racism? He didn't do a goddamn thing appeasing white folks. He didn't do shit about racism at all. In fact, at the very end, he said reparations are not politically feasible. And he said black people need to get over that shit. Well, even if it's not feasible, what's the point of voting for the Democratic Party then? Because y'all need us to get elected. It's not enough white folks y'all gonna get to not get elected. Because the liberals don't want to be like the Clintons. That's what the Clintons did. The liberals don't want to do that because in order to get them white men, you're gonna have to come off of that feminism a little bit. You're gonna have to come off that gay shit a little bit, and they're not doing that. They're gonna have to dial things back. You're gonna have to come off that immigration shit. They're not doing none of that. They're not coming off of any of those things, let alone come off of all three. If they want to get more of that white man vote. Then on top of that, they're gonna have to get serious about helping because these are the majority populations, but they're not gonna do that. So anyway, let me see. So anyway, now that I got this up, I'm about to switch gears again and jump on some other stuff because I want to clip this out later on. So one thing I wanted to talk about, I didn't get a chance. Like I kind of had those quick talk about a video that I guess Concrete Rose, a situation that happened between Roger. Wasn't a situation. It was just something I observed between Roger and Concrete Rose and Danielle. Here's the deal. Danielle had got annoyed because Danielle said she was pro black. As well, truth, you could have that opinion about stop and frisk, but truth, what you got to understand is I'm not saying you're incorrect about stop and frisk, but what I will say, general public, you're not going to be able to say, like, Michael, okay, before I jump on that, let me say this. There's a couple of things. Obviously, I'm backseat quarterbacking, but with Michael Bloomberg in particular, there's a couple of things Michael Bloomberg could have said. As far as stop and frisk, number one, he should have said straight up, I'm not gonna apologize for doing what I think is right to um protect the city of New York. And then he should talk about what happened with crime. Crime went down. Crime went down for African Americans as far as safety and all that. He should really be serious about that. But the second thing is, as far as what you're saying, as far as stop and frisk, stop ratchets, that's not gonna play well with with the Democratic Party. It's just not. So you can say that, and that could be true, but there's no way to politically like communicate that in a way that doesn't seem racist. And there's no way that if Bloomberg had his own version of Killer Mike, there's no black person you could get to say that shit because that statement that you made that sounds like some shit if a Republican came up with stop and frisk, what a nigga like Anthony Brian Logan would say. So I mean, you can have that opinion, but that's not a useful one for him. At the end of the day, black people across the country are going to view stop and frisk a certain type of way, and it doesn't matter because they're not in New York. So they don't know what New York was and what New York is. So that's as far as I'll say on that. Now jumping back to what I was talking about with Concrete Danielle and what happened with Roger. Roger goes in, he's trying to get his nigga card, and Concrete got upset about that because she wanted to hide behind the I'm a she wanted to hide behind the I'm a pro black. And one of the issues that I have with people hiding behind the pro black moniker is there's very different meanings to what pro black is. You have people that are pro black woman, that are pro feminist, that are pro a black community because they want a black community to do shit for them. Not that they want to actually contribute to a community and give and take, but they want a community because they want privatized welfare. You've got motherfuckers that basically you don't have a lot of people that are genuinely pro black, especially online. They're pro sexual politicking. They're pro I like black women will be like, I like black dick, so I believe black dick should like black pussy. So that's what makes. So at the end of the day, she got annoyed. She got annoyed by, Roger really talking about hoes will be hoes, and hoes, black men need to start treating hoes like hoes and treat women like women. And that's another thing that a lot of men are starting to come to conclusion to. You can't keep playing this, I'm gonna give females all of these goddamn chances and then let them have, bastard kids and then turn around and then try to act like they're not part of the issue. And I'm gonna keep it all the way real. If I don't give a fuck about what that nigga told you. If you're not married, it don't count. It really don't. And I don't give a fuck about what your feelings are. I don't give a fuck about you're in the moment. I don't give a damn about none of that shit. If you're not married, it doesn't count. It really doesn't. And if you activated a divorce, as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to hear it. When you start to break down most of these situations, you're starting to find that women are very much involved and in control of a lot of the fuck ups that they complain about in their life. There is no thing where they're like paper being swept up in the wind. They're actively in that shit. And the problem, that I have of a lot of these conversations is a lot of these conversations are disingenuous as hell. It's always, I'm gonna say a certain side. What's up, OJ? Did it? It's always a certain side of the story that benefits them. It's never okay. This is what both sides of it is. Like when men talk, we talk about both sides of the shit. And the reason why I wanted to bring shit like that up is because I was on Fantastic Shit, and we were talking about they were talking about Pop Smoke and kind of what happened with him and the politics of like how a lot of these dudes are always fucking with these bitches, and then they're killing each other. A lot of times it's over these chicks, or these niggas are crippin' and doing stupid shit like that. And it's like it's crazy, man. It really is. It really is. But anyway, I wanted to kind of give y'all that kind of initial thing kind of policy. What I'm probably gonna do in the future is I'm probably gonna bring some folks on and we're gonna have a back and forth on it. But I just want to give y'all my opinion. But at the end of the day, you know, what do you have? You have next. You have tomorrow is the Nevada. Then you have Super Tuesday, and that's when you might see some people drop the fuck out. And then we'll see where that goes from here. But at the end of the day, man, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm gonna keep it all the way real with you. I don't even know if the Democrats will be ready after 2024. I really don't. I do not know um if they're gonna be ready. Okay, that's how hollowed out the Democratic Party is right now. But anyway, with that being said, this is Edward signing off.